Let's hang on for Eddie then. We'll all give him a big cheer then as well, because he has a chain.
They died by Pierce's side, or what we have.
And again, very appropriate music for the evening that's in it as well. What's that about? Colin's Spotify account is telling an awful lot there. The best of the Dubliners. Are we happy enough? Yeah, we get cracking, Colin, if you like. We can break that protocol. It was 10 minutes ago, Neil. What insights have you got into the mayor's movements that we don't have? He's finishing his pint. Well done to Neil, a former mayor, of course, who knows all about tardy arrivals at functions like this. I was just going to ask the question, is there any porter in the porter shed? And then I finally see a decent man. Want to get started, so Colin? I'll get our guests in. Pat, do you want to jump in? Heather, wherever you are, do you want to come and join us? So you're finished that one.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Okay, we're going to kick off there. Around. Okay. You too. Okay, Colin.
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm delighted to welcome everyone here today as we kick off the Head of the River 2024. As we gear up, we're not just organizing an event, we're creating an experience that will resonate with rowers, enthusiasts, and the wider community. So tonight, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to our sponsors and partners. A special thanks goes to Galway City Council and to the University of Galway for their support and partnership. They're instrumental in helping us get this running. So ahead of the Charles, this side of the Atlantic, that's what we want to build here. So I want to be very clear on that goal. The only thing that can limit us is our own ambition. So our media partners, Galway Bay FM, the Connacht Tribune and TG Cahir, will be pivotal in amplifying our voice, ensuring that the Head of the River 2024 is an event that captures the imagination far and wide. I also want to express our appreciation to Portershed and Superfly Ireland, Aoife, Mary and Anthony. Your continued support for our club has been invaluable and we're incredibly grateful for your contribution to our journey. A heartfelt thank you to our sponsors, Taylor's Bar, Berwick Solicitors, Claddagh and Celtic Jewellery and Kelty. Johnny Duggan, Dave Higgins, Neil McNeilis, Sean Cummins, your generosity and support fuel our efforts and ambition. So thank you guys. To those still considering joining our cause, there are sponsorship opportunities available. We invite you to be part of a legacy to contribute to an event that not only showcases the beauty of rowing, but also showcases the city of the tribes. Together, we want to build a community in celebration of sport, culture, crack, and shared values. In closing, I invite you all to be part of this remarkable journey. Together, let's make the Head of the River a beacon of excellence, inclusivity, and international camaraderie. Thank you. Fergus?
Thanks, Colin. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your patience. We're running a little behind time. I'd like to introduce Mayor Eddie HOR. Eddie has been a great support of the club so far. And Eddie is going to say a few words first. Thanks very much, Eddie.
Yep, that's perfect. Thanks, Fergus. And Garbila Magat Lesha. It's my great pleasure as Mayor of Galway City to be here with you this evening. But it's a really, really important launch of the Tribesmen Head of the River, an event that is synonymous in sport in Galway. And it is brilliant for Galway, for sport and Galway in general to see it back after more than a decade. So to everyone involved, to Colin Hanley as president, to Fergus as captain, and indeed all the current, past, and future members of the Tribesmen Rowing Club, well done. And it's great, like I said, to see it back. Galway City is a city of festivals, and this is a festival. It's a festival of sport. It celebrates so many great traditions. And like I touched on, it's great to see it back. It'll run as traditionally on the Saturday over the course of the St. Patrick's Day weekend, and there's a family fun day, I know, as well on the Monday. So again, in the corporate, it's not just those participating, but families and people who are eager and aspire to be participating in years to come. Tonight, again, is made all the more special to have such prestigious guests. We're privileged to have Ollie Turner from Galway FM to be the MC. So we've Heather Boyle, Head of Communications at the Olympic Federation of Ireland. So welcome, Heather. Neville Maxwell, President of Rowing Ireland, and of course, an Olympian and World Rowing silver medalist. So again, to have people like that in the room adds to this event, and it adds to its prestige. And finally, Pat Boyle, former president of the Tribesmen Rowing Club and a Henley medalist. So again, for them to give of their time to be here with us in Galway to promote what is a famous and historic event, thank you, and I think you deserve a big round of applause. And again, as a council, as a local authority, we continue to support. I'm delighted that my colleague, Councillor Neil McNeilis, is here as well. He's continued to support events like this. But to you, the general public, the members of the Tribesmen Rowing Club, I've been fortunate to be at a number of events of Tribesmen throughout the course of my term in Mayor and seen what ye have done. And we're here for Siobhan's homecoming in the autumn. And indeed, at the winter, I was delighted to be joined with the Crew Blue team as well. So there's so much great work being done across so many levels. It's inclusive, it's diverse, and that's obviously the Galway that we like to represent. So with that, I think we have prestigious guests that you want to listen to more than me. So thank you very much and enjoy the weekend's activities. Gur Mágat.
Thanks very much, Eddie. And now we're going to hand over to Ollie Turner. Ollie, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Give a bull of bus to Eddie as well for making the trip here, our MC. Fergus, I might get you to pass the mic to Neville. So we had an intro of our special guests at the top table, Neville, Heather and Pat. Again, I just have to say, you know, this is the first time that I've been given sparkling water when I arrive at an event. So it just shows you the level we're at in terms of a rowing event. You don't get this at GA gigs. Big welcome to you all. Great to have you out here. It's such a wonderful occasion, isn't it? It's hard to believe that a decade has gone by. I'm working in Galway FM since the year 2000. So, you know the way you take things for granted and you just presume that every March you're going to be hearing and talking about the head of the river. And suddenly it just disappears off the spectrum for the last number of years. And for anybody who's into their sport and who isn't into the sport of rowing after our success in the last couple of Olympic Games, this is a monumental thing for Galway. It's a wonderful time to be in Galway and to be a Galwegian following sport in so many different sports. And I think it's no harm that rowing, it's putting its head back above the parapet just at the right time, Neville, as well. In an Olympic cycle, in a year like it's in it at the moment, the timing couldn't be better, could it?
Yeah, like I think when Paul Murphy contacted me a little while ago and said we're thinking of getting the head back, it was like the band was being put back together. And I started talking to a few fellas that I knew around different clubs around the country, and everyone was really excited about this event, to have it back on. A lot of us here who competed in it, it was the event in Irish rowing. So you had Go Ahead and the National Championships. They were the top events. This year, obviously, is a big year for the national team. We've Paris. We have 7 crews qualified, 6 for the Olympics, 1 for the Paralympics. A lot of Galway people in those boats. We have our first ever Olympic medalists coming from, female medalists coming from Galway. So Fiona and Afric. And then we have Katie O'Brien. We've Siobhan McCrahan. Katie is a world champion, world record holder, and Siobhan this year world champion, last year world champion. So we've big Galway contingent in the squad, and I think over the next month or so the decisions will be made on who sits where.
It's quite extraordinary. And Heather, I'll come back to you for your own memories of the head and your earliest memories of that as well. But Heather, in terms of the sport of rowing and how things have taken off, in recent years in particular. Can you put your finger on a particular turning point or a moment where Ireland suddenly decided, well, we're in an island, we should be good at this sport, let's start getting medals like our noisy neighbours have been doing for decades?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a sport that we've always quietly been good at. I mean, you look at Neville here, who's been world medalist and competed at the Olympics as well. So it's something that we've always been good at. But I think across all sport, not just rowing, over the last maybe 10 years, you're starting to hear people actually believe in themselves. And there's an element of talking out loud and kind of not being afraid to say, do you know what? Like, look at us. We're actually the best. We're actually the world standard. We can be world leaders in this, rather than kind of, I suppose, being the kind of the dark horse in the room and kind of getting your strength and your belief from that. I think that there is an element, like you look, I mean, I'm obviously looking at all of the Olympic sports at the moment. You've got Daniel Whiffen, who's just won a world championship. I mean, he's one of these examples of an athlete who comes in and just says, I can do it. And I think you've been seeing that for maybe the last 10 years in rowing, with like getting a trickle of world champions and world medals, but now it's across the board.
Is it down to investment? Was it always that?
I mean, investment always helps. You kind of get different systems. You start looking around at other systems in other countries. Investment always helps, and I think there's no hiding behind it. But you need to have a couple of results to kick off a bit of investment as well. And I think that that's maybe what started it off. And now, like this year, just this week there was an investment announcement, and I think rowing might have topped the list in that, but they topped the list because they're getting results. So it's chicken and egg. Yeah, I can't hear that.
We'll get back on that because, again, I suppose that's part of the allure of the sport as well, is that when you kind of watch somebody like Great Britain doing so well in every 4-year cycle, and you're kind of jealous. And now we're kind of getting our bit of the pie as such. Pat, I'm going to talk to you about the head, because clearly your role is with this event and the resurrection of this event. There's probably more than one reason why it stopped, but in simple terms, why do you think we have had to wait since 2013 for a Head of the River?
You'll hold it. There could be a lot of different reasons for it with the change of membership, but I think really it just comes down to the drive of people to try and make it succeed. And it just takes there's a lot of reasons. You'll always find a reason for something not to happen, okay? And it takes a certain level, you need a certain critical mass of people who want to see something come back to make it happen. And I think that it was brewing in the last maybe year, 2 years, talk about it, but this year the decision was made, we're going to try and make it happen. And what's been wonderful about this, the journey that we've been on in trying to bring the head back, is that everywhere we've turned is we've got support. You know, it's been absolutely fantastic, the support that we've received from the city, and the support, the feedback that we're getting from the clubs. We see representatives from Galway Rowing Club, from Carb Rowing and Yachting Club, Bish, Jez, College. There's a whole ecosystem down there that have just come behind us and want to see this happen. And it's just fantastic. So when you're getting that kind of feedback, we feel that we really are set for success.
But surely it's a bit easier to restart something that has such a legacy as the Head.
You'd like to think so. There is nothing easy about trying to run an event of this scale, right? And we would not be able to do it without the support and funding that you get. But there's a massive volunteer effort that's going on here that we're pulling in from all members of Tribes Rowing Club. It is not straightforward and simple to run. There's so many different arms to running this off from. We're trying to be 100% sustainable this year. So there's no plastic bottles are going to be sold on site this year. So we're going to have all the material that we're going to use for food is all 100% recyclable. This is a tip that I picked up when I was rowed the Head of the Charles. I volunteered when I was at the Head of the Charles last year as a competitor. Not a lot of people know that. I volunteered for the sustainability, and you know what's wonderful to see is the ideas that they had there, we're bringing them here right now. There's no longer a 20-year lag between what they're doing in the US state of the art. We have it right here. So all the stuff that I learned from them, it's right here from sustainability. No plastic bottles, 100% recyclable material, hydration stations. We're there.
Okay, so just cut and paste. We're unashamedly copying everything they do. Can we copy the weather? Is that the biggest obstacle, do you think, when it comes to organizing an event like that in the middle of March?
Yeah, the weather is absolutely huge, and that is it is a problem and has proved problematic throughout the rowing season. The last year, the Masters regattas, and just 2 weeks ago, St. Michael's Head of the River was cancelled. It is a problem.
I think the mayor is organised for calm
Weather for that weekend, but we're hopeful. You know, we'll put it. We've a massive child of Prague that Colin has that he's putting out, so we're hopeful we'll be okay on the weather front.
Yeah, well, it'll be a good time for global warming to kick in anytime in the middle of March as such. Heather, let's get back to the overall look of the Olympic cycle and the excitement that's building in the country, which will surely feed in to whet the appetite of locals who are interested in seeing what the sport might be all about. And I'm sure that, like, from a youngster's point of view, there are people who probably don't understand how tough a sport it is. So can you talk us through, maybe as somebody who was a high-level rower and now you watch the high-level athletes and how they perform, how tough a sport is it in terms of the physicality that's required?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is actually, this year is 100-year anniversary of Ireland competing at the Olympics. So it is a really, really special year all around. And I mean, you're going to start hearing a lot more about that and a lot more celebrations because of that special centenary celebrations. But I think there's an element that a lot of the general public, and I don't think we're talking about people in this room because we're involved in sport, but they look at TV once every 4 years, look at the games and think, well, that's great. We actually hear comments quite a bit going like, oh God, you're about 6 months out. When do you start training for these games? And there's not really always that. And it, you know, and I mean, there's an appetite and there's an interest and there's a love for the Olympics, but sometimes there's not an understanding of the hardship that goes into it. But nobody does the hardship if you don't love it. You have to love what you do. Like sport is hard, but you do get your satisfaction out of it. There's a lot, like there's a couple of things that we do with the Olympics. Like we have a schools program, and Africa and EMA actually are two of the ambassadors on it. So we teach schools. We go into, like, we've a couple of 100,000 kids who do it, and it's athletes talking to the school. We teach them about the values of respect, of respecting each other, the friendship that's involved in sport. It's the bigger values of what sport is and what the Olympics represent. And then you get like athletes at the highest level going in to tell athletes that if you believe in yourself, if you do the hard work, if you set your goals, and you talk it through in kind of child level, but you actually give them a little taste of what it's like to be an Olympic athlete. So we're kind of trying to spread the word from youth all the way up to kind of older people, getting into the media, telling the story a little bit more about how hard it is and what goes into Olympic medals and performances.
Surely, Neville, one of the things that will foster the ability of youngsters is to create events like the Head so they can perform. Is that not as simple as it is, or are you always better off performing abroad or going somewhere else to show off your skills?
No, I think the first thing it starts is with young kids rowing and having fun. So that's the priority. I think for any sport, especially in rowing. So the more you can get them in, going up and down the river, just having fun, like many of us in the room did. And then you have these local events where they're competing with each other. And then over time, people just graduate up to the top level if that's what they want. But for the majority of people, you get really good racing in Ireland. You don't have to go abroad. Obviously, our top team do. But if I give an example of our team down in Cork that are training, we've roughly 30 athletes in the centre. 27 of them are either world or Olympic medalists. So that's one sport. We're the only sport that in the country that is actually developing that in the country. So when you walk into the room, Paul O'Donovan is sitting on the corner training on the ergometer. I was down there last Friday. He was doing a 3-hour session with no music, right? And that was his second session of the day. But but there's other kids watching him, young people watching him, and they're going, if he can do it, I can do it. So they're all thriving off each other, and it's an amazing atmosphere. So he's got 8 World Championship gold medals and 2 Olympic medals. Not really well known, but that's just the nature of the sport. But going back to the everyone in the schools competing and training with each other, I think Galway is one of the hubs of the whole country, producing results from the Jazz, the Bish, Galway Rowing Club producing junior kids going into NUIG, a really successful centre. And a lot of the national team historically came out of that, but now we're seeing more of it.
Are we just blessed with generational athletes like O'Donovan now, or do you think this level of success is sustainable?
Yeah, O'Donovan and his Paul and Gary were obviously the ones that broke the glass ceiling. I think they let other people know that it can be done. But we've set up a really strong program. So now we have heavyweight men, we've heavyweight women, we've Paralympics. Across the spectrum, we're producing athletes. And like when that team go to the Olympic Games, hopefully there'll be a couple of more crews. So it won't just be 7, we're targeting 9. And we're targeting 4 medals. So go back to Heather's point, we're not kind of going there hoping. We're going there actually expecting, and all the athletes expect to do that. So
because it would have been hoping in your time. And when you think about it, you talk about the centenary, Heather, of Ireland competing the Olympics. It wasn't until London 48 that we had a rowing crew. And even over the 13 Olympics we've competed, we've only ever had 28 rowing crews in the history of Ireland competing at the Olympics. So I suppose the fact that now we're getting to maybe 9 this year is an extraordinary development in a very short space of time.
yeah, we've grown almost ahead of our expectations, certainly. But it's because there's a whole generation of athletes that, you know, sometimes someone says, well, where did you get them out of? Well, they were 15, 16, 17 years of age 4 or 5 years ago, and now they're in the national team. So the more we can foster young people coming into the sport, you know, you're not, as a 15-year-old, you're not identified as an Olympic athlete, but if there's certain bits that you have to have, and then if there's a culture and an environment, and if the clubs are supporting their young people to go forward, then you have a chance. And that's what we have.
Whisper it, Heather, but you could be looking at maybe in 3 or 4 more Olympic cycles, rowing taking away from boxing that moniker of the most successful Olympic sport for Ireland ever. Do you think that's something that's achievable and attainable? You're not far off even as it is, you know?
Yeah, not far off. And actually, even like Neville is saying, like going into the next games, we're looking at medals, like, you know, how many and what color, and we don't like to put pressure on it, but yeah, I mean, you see things like, I mean, Neville touching it in terms of the clubs, but like even Fintan McCarthy is a good example of, you know, Paul O'Donovan, he achieved because he saw Eugene and Timmy achieve, and they competed in world championships getting medals. Then Gary and Paul went on, they wanted to do one better, got the Olympic medal. Fintan looked at that. Fintan is in the same club on the erg beside them, training away, just looking across, going, you know what, if he can do those numbers, I can do those numbers. And I think that now when it's with that National Rowing Centre built, you've got a huge, like when you go into that room, there's like how many ergometers are in there? There's about 20 or 30 in there, and they're training beside each other, and you're just constantly looking across. And if it's a junior looking at a senior, you're seeing what people are doing, and that's what brings everybody on.
Do you think rowing success at world and Olympic level has any kind of knock-on effect to other sports, if nothing else, just to cause a little bit of inspiration to say, well, if they're picking up medals, I better work harder, and maybe it might be for me?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in Ireland, where we are a little bit more unique to some other countries, is we're a small nation, and you know we do mix with each other. Like sometimes, you know, sometimes you're training away in your silo of what you're doing, but you know there are different hubs or different events where you come together, and athletes like to talk to each other. Social media, it's the worst and it's the best, but people link up with each other and kind of connect with each other. And you know, you find, especially at an Olympic Games where you have a multi-sport environment, and I was only talking about it with someone earlier, you go into the food hall and you'll have like a rower sitting down next to a boxer kind of saying, well, what do you do in between sessions, or whatever it is, and you're learning and you're sharing information. And I think I think people bring each other on and they pick each other up. They pick each other, like it's not always success. There's every athlete has highs, they have lows, and it's a matter of kind of finding the right people to surround yourself. When you have your low, you come back up to your high. And I think in Ireland, because we're a small country, we tend to support each other like that.
I think as well, if we look at the results in Tokyo, now I know the time difference didn't make it as visible for everyone, but the women's four was the first ever team medal from Ireland in any sport. And it was the women's four, which was a newly created combination, newly created unit. And they've, I think, inspired other women's teams to, to be able to do it. And we're seeing more women come into the sport, junior kids come into sport on the back of it. So if someone can see it being done, be it, top athletes or juniors, they then can aspire to it. So we're really lucky. We're in a golden era of results where people actually can say it's possible. And especially with heavyweight men. Back in my day, heavyweight men were disregarded for whatever reason, and the focus was all on lightweight. Whereas if you think back on it, if we had that focus on heavyweight men, we probably would have had a lot more results. So we have a more holistic approach to what we're trying to do.
I'd agree with that. There should be an awful lot more focus on heavyweight men. Please.
Not
Pat,
too
let's
much.
get back to the main event on the 16th. So it was Terry O'Flaherty who fired the starting pistol back in 2013. Hopefully we'll have the pistol at the ready for Eddie on March the 16th. Can you paint the picture about where it's going to start, finish, what kind of racing lines should be taken, the route, the duration, the whole picture of what the event will be?
Okay, well, it's going to start. It starts quite early in the morning for crews actually embarking from down around the Jazz and from Fisheries Field. They'll row up river to the lake, spin around, and there'll be a starting boat up there, and they'll be set off at 30-second intervals to go down the river. So this year we're restricting the entries to 8s and 4s. We just need to run this event off cleanly and safely. And so there's going to be 2 events, one at 11 o'clock, one at 3 o'clock. So we'll be finished before the rugby. Not that that had any influence on timing. And yeah, so they'll row straight down the river, and they go back to where but it's a time trial. That's what it is. So it's not like there's side-by-side racing on it, although crews may pass each other out down the course. So yeah, that's basically what the course is going to be about. But it's not, what's important is that the event runs, because as you know, the only way that athletes test themselves is by having events. And I think that's one of the cool things that our club is doing, that from being a club that just went and attended events, now we're running an event and we're giving something back. And it's not just Tribes. When I say Tribes, when I say we, it's all we can't run this alone. As I've said before, all the Galway clubs are coming in behind us to make this event run. But we need to run it. And it needs to get back on the calendar. And if we get it on the calendar, it will grow. And if it grows, we will attract more people to the sport. And that's what we want to see, is just people, is more people coming into the sport. I would like to say one thing. I know there's a lot of focus on the elite side of it. There's a lot of people in this room that only took up rowing in their 40s and 50s maybe. Do you know? That's a thing. That's a big thing. It's not all about the top athletes. There's huge benefits to be gained out of rowing just for health's sake, because it's non-contact. And the Carib is probably Galway's worst kept secret. Okay, it is a massive secret. It is so beautiful up there. It is so beautiful to go up for a row. And you don't have to be like the top athlete that's trained 14 times a week. You can just go up there, and for mental release and break out of the world, it is just an absolutely beautiful sport. From that point of view, it's not just all about the top. You'd come down. We'll give you a spin, Ollie.
Of course I will, no bother.
I think what Pat, I think like following on from what Pat said, I think that the river is the heart of Galway, and sometimes it's only when you move away from the city that you realize how special it is. And I know, like, most of my, so many good memories from when I was growing up is just whether it's going out with friends for a row on the river, just to kind of looking around. I can still picture, I haven't been on it in I won't even say how many years, but I've been out in it, but I can picture every corner. I can picture, you're like, just as you were asking about, I think myself and Neville just had a little giggle about the line, because I think I can picture the right line, because you do it, you do it so often when you're training and when you're thinking about it. But I think it's I think it's always, the Carib is always a happy place. No, there's been a couple of days when it wasn't, but mostly the Carib is a happy place, and to see the head back on the river, the head of the river back on the schedule, that was Neville said it earlier, there were two big competitions of the year, but the Galway Head on St. Patrick's weekend, that was a litmus test. You knew how you were going to go with the summer.
How tough was it, Neville, for visiting crews to try and make an impact? Because there must be some advantage to being from Galway, knowing your own river, your own patch.
I raced it kind of as a home rower and a raider, I suppose, as a blow-in sometimes. And yeah, I have to say, when I was rowing the Cox's 4 and the pair, I knew how to cut inside that red buoy at the top. And people would be wondering, what are you doing? But you have to know it. But it was the litmus test. You know, NUIG, senior men's, successful at senior championships, Henley, Neptune coming down. There was couple of seconds between crews over that distance. So it was amazing competition, you know, across all the levels. And it used to be 3 heads, small boats, the 4s and the 8s. Yeah, won all 3. I was the lightweight. But you know what? The best part of Go Ahead, the party. Okay, let's just be honest. The racing was brilliant, but it was where we were all actually allowed to kind of have 3 or 4 days off your club program, and you know, there's great memories of it. I've amazing memories of it. My dad was involved in it. I remember Mike Heskin one day asking me, I think after the 8th head, would you go over there and collect your father? He'd the Corrib Princess, because that's a big part of the head of the river as well. I don't know if you have it this year, but the boat going up and down with the jazz, the music, you know, it's a social event. He got off it okay. It's all right. But you know, it's
a big part of it.
There's rowing, and the fact that actually you met so many people. It was when you were all there, and you made a lot of friends at the event as well.
It's not a coincidence that we're launching this event in Rag Week. We're actually calling today Tribesmen Thursday, to following on from Donegal Tuesday. I suppose, Pat, you know, entries is the big thing. I mean, where are we at the moment in terms of local crews and visiting crews who have committed to coming?
Well, the prospectus only went up this week, so it's early days yet, and I think over the next couple of weeks we'll see the entries come in. Yeah, as you say, like we've got a lot of very positive feedback about the crews that are interested in coming. So the entries are up there that go through the Rowing Union website. But there's another aspect to this which I think is just as important as the rowing itself that's going to take place that day. It's going to be on the bank holiday Monday, where we're doing a participation day out in Leisureland. So again, this is an opportunity for us to bring rowing out into the public rather than just on the river. We're going to be in Leisureland, and we're going to be showing, we'll have boats there, we'll have rowing machines there, and we'll be showing people what the equipment that's used to go rowing, because there's a lot of interest in it. You know, that movie came out there was it a month ago, The Boys in the Boat? So, you know, and again, when I was in the head of the Charles, that was huge over there. They had that boat, they had that racing shell there. So we want to do something along those lines with the racing shell there. What? So they're teasing me. So that's going to take place in Leisureland. That's a big deal, because that's as important as the event itself. You'll have all these families coming along, okay, like with their kids, trying out rowing, seeing how big a rowing boat is. They'll see O'Donovan and all those guys rowing in the Olympics, but here's where they'll see what the boats actually look like. How big are they? How big is that oar? You know, it's a different thing to see it on the TV and you see it in real life. And then you can sit on an erg and see the scores coming up on the computer screen. So that's really an important event. So that's all part of the festival of rowing that we're trying to bring as part of Tribes Head of the River this year. It's the whole festival. It's the rowing, but it's also this of bringing the community involved.
Can I ask our two elite rowers, albeit in the past, somewhat, former, what makes the perfect rower, Neville, in your opinion? Like, what are you talking about? Is it upper body strength? Is it timing? Is it mental?
Madness. Look, I think, well, personally, an inability to catch a ball was probably put me on that direction. So, and I think when I look at a lot of the rowers that I know, I suppose there's a mindset there. There is no perfect shape for it or that. But it's a fun sport. Okay, that's the first thing I would say about it. Be it recreational or top level, you have to be having fun at it. To be at the highest level, it's single-mindedness. Whether you're in a single individual boat or even in a crew boat, you have to be single-minded and focused. That's the big aspect to it. But again, I think as a sport, I think it attracts such a huge, broad spectrum of people, and there is an event for everyone, which I think is the most important thing. The vast majority of our rowers are really having a good time, and that's the key to it at the levels that they want to be at.
And yet you talk about it being such a single-minded sport. Heather, at the other side, you look at the fours and the success that the girls had in the Olympics. There's got to be some element of trust in your teammates to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I do, yeah, to add that, it is the camaraderie. And I think when you go into, there is a difference when you're talking about people, there's a difference between a single and there's a difference, a single and a crew. And it's a different kind of single or determination that you have. And within the crew, there's an element of wanting to do it for the others as well. Like I remember when I was rowing in a double and you're looking at across at your teammate. I remember racing with Sinead and you're looking across at her going, oh my God, is she pushing herself harder than me? I better push myself a bit harder. And, afterwards, the same session, she's kind of going, I thought you were pushing yourself harder than me. So I always go, and you're doing it for each other. Like, and there's something that's really, I always felt like I always preferred a crew boat to a single. And because when you finish, if the result is good, result is only part of what you're doing, but if the result is good, it's doubly good. If it's not good, you're having the pain. And there's something about that. But and to add to what Neville was saying about what does it take to be at that level, and I think it's not always sheer skill. Sheer skill is just that's part of it. It comes and goes. It is your mind, it's your mindset. But I think you have to be incredibly brave and be able to be vulnerable if you want to get to the top level, because you're really just you're leaving no stone unturned on the way. And to do that, that's putting yourself in a really vulnerable position. You're putting yourself out there going, hey guys, I've done everything. This is me at the best that I can be. And that's brave.
Can I ask again a question for the uninitiated? In an eights or in a fours, if there's somebody slacking off, Neville, can you tell? Do you know?
Oh yes, especially when you're on the 7th seat. Yeah, listen, no, that's the job of the cocks, to identify that kind of stuff. But look, everyone is doing their best, right? That's the key to this. I think the people we aren't talking about here are the coaches. They are the ones that identify the athletes in the boats doing their best. They're coaches, they're psychologists, they're childminders. They're looking after us, trying to bring us together, and they're the ones that actually drive the athletes to achieve. And I think we've all had coaches where if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have stuck at it. So I think as a rower, you get to where you are at whatever level it is, and it's often based on that coach's ambition for you as well. But yeah, in crews, it's I think everyone is doing their best. It's a tough sport if someone isn't doing the job. Look, I'll give you the probably the toughest selection I've ever seen is Paul O'Donovan and Gary O'Donovan, brothers, Olympic medalists, silver world champions, and another guy comes in, Fintan McCarthy, and takes one of the seats. I think the differential between the two was 1 second in trialing. So that decision had to be made by the coaches, and it paid off. So, that's how tough it is at that top level. I think when we're rowing masters, when we're rowing recreational juniors, I think we should be more sensible. And it's not all about winning, because people develop at different stages.
Pat, I've got to talk to you, I suppose, about the job the likes of Fergus does and all the guys in the Tribesmen in terms of engaging with the community, which seems to be the big thing in recent times as well, to kind of move away from any perception of elitism and the fact that anybody, as you mentioned, can get into a boat. How well are you doing in terms of engaging with the community in Galway?
Well, I think we're doing okay, but and I think the proof is in the pudding with the numbers. Like our membership keeps growing. There's a waiting list now to try to join our club. Um, but I think that what's really cool about the club is just the way that it's gone about. You know, I think the mayor alluded to it. There's a lot of different aspects to it. With we're Tribesmen now is unashamedly Masters Rowing Club. Okay, we don't have competitive juniors or a senior program in our club. We're masters, and it's worked really well, I think, in our club. And it's also facilitated the introduction of the Paralympic, the Crew Blue section to the club, which the mayor came down and saw them practicing for their indoor trials. He came down just before Christmas, and they had the trials in January. There's a lot of different strings to it, and I think that's a credit not only to the Ferguson Colin this year, but the previous committees that have laid the foundations to get the club to where they were. I see Joni's here, and I see that there's other past members of the committees here. But this is what it takes: it takes people with vision and to carry on the tradition and to try and do something bold. And that's led us to this stage now, where we're doing something like what we're doing now, bringing the head back, and not just the head, but just expanding out that whole philosophy of community engagement by taking on the participation day.
Well, listen, keep up the good work. You're a fantastic club and a great part of the sporting ethos of Galway as well. Heather, I got to ask you the tough question here. What to you would constitute a successful Olympics? Because it is a numbers game. I mean, are you plotting at the moment and thinking we're going to top, you know, what we did in London? Is that possible?
This isn't being recorded, is it?
It kind of is. We'll play it back to you maybe in July.
Yeah.
Like, what's
Yeah.
realistic?
Yeah,
Because you
yeah.
know, you're talking about Daniel Whiffen, for instance,
Yeah.
yesterday, and now suddenly everyone is saying, sure, she's a shoe-in. Like, he's surely going to
Yeah,
win one or two
yeah.
medals. You're looking at Rashida Adeleke possibility. You're looking at a couple of other
There's
athletes.
so many. Yeah, the way I suppose we look at it in the Olympic Federation of Ireland is we look at opportunities to win a medal, because you come away every games, you come away with surprises and you come away with disappointments. And I suppose my job in communications as well is to kind of manage media expectations as well, because that's a duty of care to your athletes. So we will never put a medal on somebody's head, or I won't name medals, but we will say we're going in with the opportunity to win maybe between 12 and 15 medals. If we come away, we would hope that we would come away with 6 to 8. That can come from anywhere within that pot of 12. Like, to name this, there's like, I'm not going to say there's going to be 10 medals coming from rowing, but we would hope there would be a few from rowing, but we won't put on a label on athletes where we would hope they'd come from. The show jumpers are performing, they're #1 nation in the world. You've got Dan Whiffen, you've Rashida Adeleke, you've got Ciara McGeehan, you've got Reese McClenaghan, you've got like the boxers. I mean, all the boxers could win, so there's any number.
Rugby sevens?
Rugby sevens, male and female. So, and there are 2 Galway girls on the panel for the rugby sevens. I'm going to be in with them in a couple of weeks' time, doing a bit of media training. But like, you're kind of going into a group of people knowing that, and I think this goes back to when we're talking about selections and whatever, you're going into a group of 20 girls and 20 boys who are looking for the 12 spots, so it's always tough up there. So, but there's a lot of medal opportunities. So
The fact that it's in Paris as well, is that not a help?
that's a massive help. There's going to be a huge interest. There's like London, I think we just had a group of people. I wasn't over during the week, but we have like hospitality houses. We've the athletes staying in the village. Most of the athletes, the rowers, are going to be staying just outside it, because we're keeping a performance focus on everything we're doing. So the rowers are staying closer to the rowing course, athletes in the athlete village. But as soon as they finish, the day after they finish, we're actually moving them out so that the village is always a performance focused environment. But we're moving them into, I don't know if anyone has ever been in the Irish Cultural Centre in Paris. So
That probably has.
Yeah. But they're going to be moving out there and spending time there. But there's going to be like an exhibition of the history of Irish Olympics there. There's an Irish house just next door to the Moulin Rouge that's going to be not that we condone any kind of partying, but it'll be hopping like. So, you know, so the atmosphere out there is going to be good, but the athletes feel that. We're coming from a games where I think I was probably the only spectator in every arena. So, you know, so the athletes, like they prepare for everything. They prepare to compete in quiet stadiums. They prepare for busy ones, but having their parents and families coming, watching them, that just adds, like, you know, it adds pressure, but it adds excitement.
I think the crowds will be a huge boost. This year, last year at the World Rowing Championships, we had a huge Irish contingent out there, and the roar that crowd brought on, like there must have been about 100 Irish people there in a section of the crowd, and the athletes knew it and they could hear it in the last 300, and it lifts you. So Paris is going to be mental, right? In that sense.
Have you seen the course?
Yeah, I raced there a long time ago, and it's set up. It looks good, but you know what? It's about the athletes. Just, you know, it's an instant thing. I go back to him again. Paul O'Donovan, he referred to the Tokyo Olympics as the Japan Regatta, right? And they will all be like that. They will be calm, they will be relaxed, but it's up to us in the crowd to actually be the wave that actually pushes them on across. Because normally at regattas you have the Dutch there, the Swiss there, they're making noise. The Irish were making all the noise. So I think Paris is going to be massive for us in that sense.
I'm getting so excited even just talking about it. And I suppose we got to mention, you know, it's a big participation event ahead, but there will be, you know, crowds following it as well and keeping an eye on it from a spectator perspective. I suppose that's the beauty of sport, isn't it? There's one thing playing it, but it's another thing having people watching you perform.
Yeah, that's true. So there's going to be natural vantage points for this. I would say Dangan will be a very good spot for people to go to watch the crews going by. But the crews will probably finish a little bit further up from Quincentennial Bridge this year, just from where the flow is, the way the flow is at the moment. So it's going to be good fun. It's nice to see the event back on the calendar.
It'll be on us before we know it, won't it?
Right, it's only a couple of weeks away, so it's only 4 weeks away now.
Well, we're so excited. Thank you all so much for coming out here tonight. I'll get Fergus and Colin, but give our panel a big bowl of bus before we hand it over to the lads to finish off. Pat, Heather and Neville, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. To follow up with that, we'll close up shortly. That's incredible talk. What I took from that was the medals, what color and how many. I like that. I was going to do a few housekeeping things first of all. Pat mentioned the participation day. That's on Monday after the bank holiday weekend. That's an important event. We'll be asking our volunteers to help out support that as well. Where we're trying to showcase rowing to the public and in a controlled environment. So hopefully indoors. It might be outdoors yet, but it'll be weather dependent. We're working with the Galway Sports Partnership on that and the Galway Active Cities Officer, that's Declan Burke there. So we're working through that program. We'll need your help and support on that day as well. That's on March the 18th, and that will be from 12 to 4 p.m. And it is a family outing, so there's kids, and if anyone can do face painting or something like that, that'll be great. I want to say thanks for joining us today. Thanks to Heather, Neville, and Pat. Thanks to Ollie that was an incredible chat. The three guys here remind us of the rich history and enduring passion that fuels our love for rowing. Their reflections inspire us and foster a community united by our love of this sport and its impact on our lives. Their vision, or this vision, and the commitment is what unites us. Not only are we excited for the upcoming Head of the River 2024, but we're also dedicated to promoting the sport of rowing in Galway and beyond. Thanks. Bear with me, public speaking, not something I enjoy. I have two important notes on this. I'll get over it in 3.5 minutes is what it says. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you for your presence here today. Special thanks to our esteemed speakers and their invaluable contributions, to Rowing Ireland for their excellent support and work supporting all the clubs, to our audience for your active engagement and interest in our endeavours. As we anticipate the Head of the River 2024, I invite you to join us on the journey to make it a landmark event. Your continued support and collaboration are essential, and we're grateful for the involvement of local businesses, the rowing community, and our dedicated volunteers, our committee members, and all those behind the scenes who help to execute these events. There is a lot of work. The lads mentioned it there. It's an incredible amount of work that happens behind the scenes, and we're all volunteers. So I want to take a moment as well to acknowledge the incredible rowing talent that Galway has produced over the years. From junior to world and Olympic champions, the rowers from clubs like GRC, the Bish, Jez, and of course Tribesmen make us all proud. This achievement wouldn't be possible without the dedication of our volunteers who support these clubs day in and day out. And I want to encourage everyone to use the recognition program that Rowing Ireland have on their website for Volunteer of the Month. I think that's still running. I think it's a good initiative, yeah. And I think we should look at that regularly and put someone forward and nominate them and get some of that recognition back for our volunteers to continue their involvement. I also want to pay tribute to the Tribesmen founding members and life members who've laid the foundation for Tribesmen Rowing Club back in 1976. Their vision and dedication have paved the way for the vibrant rowing club that we have today. So kudos to those guys. A special thank you to our neighbours and supporter, the University of Galway and the University Boat Club, and their continued support. Together, all the clubs and schools on our rivers, we continue to strengthen the rowing community in Galway and nurturing the next generation of rowing champions. Almost there. I'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to Mayor Eddie Hoare for his support of the sport in general and our club. His previous support of our para-rower regatta at Christmas was incredible. Really appreciate that. And we're truly grateful for your ongoing commitment to our club and to the wider community. We're grateful to our media partners, Galway Bay FM, the Connacht Tribune, for their invaluable coverage. A big thanks to our venue host, the Portashed, again, and their continued support. This venue contributes significantly to a good event, and I kudos to them, so thank you very much. And I encourage everyone to stay connected with Tribesmen Rowing Club through our social media channels. We're quite active on the Instagram. I don't think we're TikTokers, but I think we're happy with that. You'll find the updates for the events and the opportunities to get involved there, whether it's through volunteering, participating, or just simply attending and cheering on the race day. So, before we conclude, I'd like to express our gratitude once again to all our sponsors, our supporters, and the wider rowing community. Your contributions make events like the Head of the River possible, and we couldn't do it without you. Thanks once again, and let's make the Head of the River 2024 an event to remember. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Fergus. And thanks to Colin for the invite. And for all of you. Big thanks as well to my media colleague, Darren Frehel from RT, who's with us as well. He always gives a great big shout out to anything to do with Galway Sport on RT. So well done. Darren, I think, is coming up next week in the Oireachtas committees. We'll talk about, don't mention the war, is that what he says. Folks, hang around. There's still plenty more vino and a couple of more pot noodles that we can fire out before we call it a day. So enjoy the rest of your rag week. Good night. Thank you.